And so now I wanted to start our panel discussion. We have moderators from Support Equality Arizona Schools. This is a youth organization, and I wanted to pass over the mic, give them an opportunity to let us know as a student what is going on in schools.
Hey, so we are Support Equality Arizona Schools. We are currently inside a van just wrapping up after our recent school walkouts. And so what's going on in schools? Well, my name's Hayden and I go to Gilbert Classical Academy. And there, I think things are getting worse. I think we already know that things have been really bad with suspensions and with truancy issues becoming more and more prevalent and being focused on Black and brown people. But I also think it's getting worse because now you have the factor of school identification. So now we have the issue that now in order to enter school, we have to wear our school IDs on us, and we have to keep our school IDs on us all the time. And if you miss it once, you have to pay the school. If you miss it twice, you have to go to lunch detention. This is absolutely mandatory for all students. And as you could clearly tell, it is very harsh and it is clearly biased towards certain students over other students. These ID policies are not just limited to my school, they're limited across they're across my district, and they're being implemented on an increasing amount across the nation. So ID policies have been a big issue for us. They've been increasing detentions, suspensions, which have led to all of those impacts that we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah, this is kind of like a beautiful segue because Representative Tarek just talked about the prevalence of anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ bills in our legislative floors right now. And that is one of the reasons that we walked out today. We literally just did a walkout here at Desert Vista High School, literally 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So we're in a cardboard car. We're
Yeah,
this place is full of cardboard. It's really fun. It's actually so interesting that we're doing something on truancy right now because our students, when we walked out today, they were threatened with counting unexcused absences. And in this morning, my mom called me out of school, which is the generally accepted policy, I believe, for leaving school. And then the staff intercepted me in the parking lot and they asked me where my parent was. And I told them that my mom called me out and they were like, our systems are down. And then they escorted me back to class. And it was very jarring. I've never had that happen to me before. The staff also told me that if I told them the truth, because they thought I was skipping class, they would not give me a referral. And then I told them the truth. I offered to show them my messages with my mom where I told her that where she told me that she signed me out, and they were like, no. And then they said they were going to give me a referral. So on Monday, I'm getting a referral. Yay.
Recent developments and new things are happening all the time.
Oh yeah. Students are having an interesting time in schools.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us from the car. I know y'all were busy, and it's Friday, and so we'll go ahead and move on with our speakers. Are y'all okay if I introduce? Yes, okay, so I will introduce our panel speakers. I wanted to first say that we invited these speakers, they're not just speakers, they're friends, to share their personal experience with this issue. We have Kara, who is a parent and an organizer with the ACLU of Arizona. And we have Audie and Jaden, who are students and also involved with Puente Youth. Audie and Jaden were at a school board meeting last night that went super late. And so they are also showing up to places where their voices are being heard and are in front of people that their job is to listen to them. And I do want to mention that all of our friends' experience has been super recent, like it's happening right now, or it happened within the last couple months. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature on the bottom of this screen.
Hello, my name is Jaden, and I go by they, them pronouns as well. Did you want me to start off talking about what my experiences were?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so starting off in high school, I started developing a lot of medical issues. I was in and out of the hospital constantly, and I was constantly in the doctor's office because I was sick. So I ended up missing a lot of school. So in turn, I decided to get an IEP. And within my IEP, I was supposed to get regular trips to nurses. I was supposed to get access to counselors whenever I needed. And I was supposed to get extensions on homework and alternative assignments, and as well excused absences for medical reasons. Of course, my IEP was not respected. And instead, I was constantly berated by staff and like my teachers and admin, over my constant absences and my constant tardiness. Despite me always calling in advance, telling them I'm going to be late because I'm sick in the mornings, or telling them I have an appointment. And half the time they didn't even file my absences as unexcused absences, and it counted just as regular absences. And whenever I tried to fix it, they were just like, well, what can we do? Yeah, and it was very embarrassing, going through like class and just being like berated by my teachers all the time, constantly being called lazy in front of everyone else. It was really embarrassing because I just really wanted to learn. And despite like all the absences I had, I managed to like excel in my schoolwork. I managed to like continue maintaining like constant A's and B's in my schoolwork, but instead, so it really showed that I understood the curriculum and I was really participating in the work. But because they wouldn't like respect my IEP and they wouldn't give me like the schoolwork that I needed, I was failed from class, from all my classes. Eventually the school decided I was too much to like accommodate for, and it was too difficult for them to maintain for me, which was a little bit weird considering that they weren't even maintaining them at all or respecting it at all. So instead I was essentially kicked out of school. I did decide to go to another school for a short while, but it was kind of a similar story where, my IEP was not respected. And I was constantly berated, and they made me feel like I was too sick to go to school, that I couldn't succeed, and it was very devastating for my self-confidence for a good while, because I'm very eager to learn and I'm very eager to like continue my education, but overall I was not given the opportunity, and instead I was pushed out by the school.
Thank you, Jaden, for sharing. Adi, do you mind going?
Hi, my name is Audie. And just recently, sorry, my roof is being worked on right now, if you can hear it. But just recently in September, I actually lost my boyfriend to suicide, and I was on the phone with him when it happened, and I emailed my teachers. I was attending 2 schools at the time, and I emailed all teachers from both schools and letting them know what happened. And was just kind of like giving them updates on it. And only one teacher out of, I think, 4 or 5 responded. The rest ignored my email. And so I missed school. It happened on a Thursday, and so I missed school for the rest of the week. And then a week after he died, I had a meeting with my second school, Peoria Flex Academy, and they were kind of like, I know what happened, but you need to come back to school. You can't miss so many days. And my mom and I barely talked, but my mom was like, this is the situation. It's probably not going to happen for a while. And so we settled on an agreement to where any days that I missed, it would be an excused absence, because they were aware of my situation and they would tell my other school, Raymond S. Kellis, about it. That never happened. And because of that, I was withdrawn from both schools, and they did not tell me or my mom or give any of us a warning about withdrawing me. And when I showed up to school one day, it was at Raymond S. Kellis. They pulled me out of class, wouldn't let me go get my stuff, and made me sit in the office and wait for my mom to get to the school. And it took like 2 hours. that I was just sitting there because my mom, she works for PUSD in the transportation department. And it's been like really hectic lately, so it was really hard for her to get down. But when I was waiting there, my counselor and the vice principal questioned me and were really angry at me for missing school. And they kind of said that, like, oh, we know what happened, but like that's not an excuse. You need a valid absence. And eventually when my mom did get to the school, she got into a really big argument with them and said there was a meeting that happened. We were all on the same page. What is happening? And they said that, oh, we did not get that information at all whatsoever. And then my mom basically told them what happened. And they told her, oh, we didn't know that was the situation. I apologize. If we knew, then we would have handled this better. But that is also not true because my junior year, I knew a kid, his brother passed away from suicide, and they only gave him 3 days to miss school, and then he had to come back. And so after that meeting with Kellis, we went to go meet at PFA again, and they said that because I wasn't making an effort to come to school every day, that they had to withdraw me, even though we made an agreement for me doing online courses there. And so my mom was really pissed off, and she tried to get me an IEP for them to follow, and they said no because they already made accommodations there. And the accommodations in question were like a little therapy room, and that's it. And they told my mom, well, if Audie wants to talk to somebody, they can talk to the behavioral like therapist that they offered at the school. And that person there, his name is Val Barrett. He used to be the principal at my elementary school, and we had problems with him a lot, and he did absolutely nothing. So my mom explained that to them, and they were like, oh, well, there's nothing really we can do, and an IEP wouldn't work because we already give accommodations. So eventually my mom and we both just gave up. And I am still not enrolled in school currently, and I'm just going to get my GED, because no matter what, like every single school that I have attended, the staff just don't care. And this whole situation that happened with my boyfriend passing away, it was a lot to carry. And it just made me feel even worse about the situation because I was constantly having to explain myself and what happened, just for staff to say, oh, sorry to hear about that. There's nothing we can do. You have to come back. I don't really care. And then also not a lot of the staff not having empathy as well. Only like one teacher really helped me through all of that. And it was just really embarrassing too. Anytime I would try to make an effort to school because word got out what happened and everyone knew, and it made me feel really alienated. And then also staff having to constantly pull me out and then say, no, you can't go back. You need to explain why you haven't been to class. And so the last year, like September through December, it was really, really difficult. And then also it was very triggering also having meetings with schools and explaining what happened and basically just having to retell it over and over again. But yeah, that's pretty much what I experienced.
Thank you for sharing, Audie. I'll now pass it over to Kara, who is a parent and organizer with us.
Hey y'all, my name is Kara Jansen and I go by she, her pronouns. Like Cynthia said, I'm the Smart Justice Organizer here at the ACLU of Arizona. I am also a parent of 3 teenagers. My youngest actually just turned 13, which is very crazy to say. So 13, 14, and 16. I have a little bit of a history. My kids were with their dad and their stepmom for a good many years. I was incarcerated due to substance abuse issues. When I came home, they had been through many traumas and were having a hard time in school. I swear, my daughter, when I came home, was in 7th grade. And I mean, I got a call every day, either from her school or the middle school where my boys were at. My youngest does pretty well. He adapts pretty well. He does get bullied a lot because he's a little bit bigger. My middle son, however, we did get an IEP for. So back in 2019, we started the process. It takes a while. They came back saying that he had ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences, which basically they did give him, well, they were supposed to give him special accommodations such as like extra break passes during class. He has a tendency to call attention to himself when he's bored. And, you know, teachers don't like that. So they kick him out of class. He ends up at the front office, staying there all day, doing nothing. That was in grade school. So now he's in high school. So he's missed, the first semester, he missed many, many days. Second semester, we went back, tried to start fresh with a new semester. He was doing a lot better at getting classes and not being as much of a disruption. But he was still getting singled out because the SRO already knew him from the semester before, as well as the teachers that he had. So he already had like an X on his back, if you will. And like Audie said, just taking him out of class and each time he switches schools and this reoccurring of them calling me that something's happening, then I need to come in and then having to explain again what the history is, and that, you know, it's a trigger for myself having to talk about my history and why the kids are having such, so many struggles right now. They're criminalizing him for not going to class. Like you all said, it's not effective to suspend someone, not let them come to class when they're already not going to class. They obviously need some sort of other support. And, I know COVID and doing everything virtually kind of slowed everything down, but it clearly slowed everything down. So kicking kids out of school is clearly not the answer to these issues. And another issue for me personally is the school to prison pipeline. They already have cops in schools. They're already handcuffing kids. You see it on the news, like 5-year-old getting handcuffed at school. That's ridiculous. That's traumatic. Being an adult and being handcuffed in public is traumatic. I can't imagine being a child, trusting adults to protect you, and they put you in handcuffs. My daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, had the same issues. I was constantly getting calls from her teachers and principals about her, smoking in the bathroom with the rest of the kids, and now they're kicking her out of school. And what does that do either? Like, obviously these kids are, finding ways to do these things, and that's what's going to happen. We need education is the problem. And the problem is that some people in our state are afraid to educate. A lot of these bad bills come from fear of challenging the status quo, and doing things differently, and accepting everybody, no matter the color of their skin, their status, their sexual orientation. None of it should matter. Everybody should feel comfortable to learn when and where they are comfortable learning. Just like any other addict or person needing help, a homeless person, you have to go to them where they're at. That's the only way to make change. You can't expect people to come in when they're already having a hard time coming in. You have to go to them. So over my experiences, I love to hear from the students. I hate to hear what you're going through. I understand the trauma, and I applaud you for being brave and coming on here and sharing your stories. It takes a lot. So thank you so much. And I think that's all I have right now.
Yes, thank you, Kara. Thank you, Jaden. Thank you, Audie.
Starting with the first speaker, who we heard. So, how do you wish that the school had handled this awful experience?
So with my IEP, I was actually supposed to have regular meetings with my teachers. Typically only one teacher showed up because it was not, mandatory. So one way I wish that they would have handled this is, made it mandatory for them to like communicate with me. And, because I tried very hard to communicate with my teachers in classrooms, but they wouldn't really listen. And when I told them I had these meetings available to like kind of talk about it, instead they were just kind of like, whatever, it's not really a big deal. And I believe I forgot to mention this before, but I was also, because of my absences, they were pushing to either take legal action on me or and criminalize me. So of course, I wish that they did not do that. I wish that instead they showed me the support that I deserved and, not threatened to arrest me or arrest my mother or sue us, which were all different options that they were saying to us. I really think that if if the school respected students' IEPs and gave them the accommodations that they deserved, I wish the school really stood up for me instead of casting me aside and pushing me out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend who has an IEP and they've experienced similar issues, and it's really awful to hear that this is something that's happening across a lot of our schools. And I'm really sorry you had that experience.
Yeah.
All right. To the next speaker after that, the same question. How do you wish your schools had handled this issue?
I wish that there was a lot more communication on their end, and that they actually stuck to their word, with the meetings that we had, where they said that my absences would be excused and that it wouldn't affect me or my grades in any way. And I also wish that a lot of the staff had more empathy, because before all of this happened, I was already kind of viewed as a bad student in their eye, mainly because I I started problems to them, but the problems in question were anytime I was mistreated, I wouldn't just sit back and let it happen. And also with my mom working for the district, she wouldn't let it happen. And so I wish that a lot of the staff were more empathetic and actually talked to me, asked me how I was doing and with the situation that happened. And I forgot to mention this also, but they actually locked me out of my student email, so I could not communicate with anybody or try to get any assignments or anything like that. So it was really difficult. And I also wish that they didn't do that, because they sat there and told my mom, oh, I'm not doing any of the work. I'm not even attempting, when I couldn't do anything at all whatsoever because I couldn't have access to it because they took away my student email from me. But I also wish that I mainly just wish that they kept their word with how it wouldn't affect me at all whatsoever. And that I wouldn't like be withdrawn or get in trouble for missing days of school, and that I could take as much breaks as I needed, because that obviously was a lie, because if that was true, then I would probably be like on my way home from school right now instead of not being in school. And yeah, I think that's all.
I understand that this is just such a hard topic for you, and I know that if there's one thing that we've learned in politics is that administration and districts do not keep their word because there's nothing that makes them do that. Thank you so much. And I wanted to ask the same thing to Jaden. How do you wish the school handled your situation?
To Kara, go ahead.
I'm sorry
Okay.
to cut-
Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, I didn't mention either, but my son was actually just recently withdrawn from Deer Valley High School. So for missing class. He's being a teenager right now, and he decided to go to his dad's, so he didn't have to have any rules, and which means he's not going to school. So before that, I do remember, like I said, he was doing a little bit better, but there were many times that I was called in to the office, and there would be like 3 different people, like the behavior person and a teacher and someone else, and then the SRO too, and then myself and my son. And it was just like a super intimidating environment. Like these big men like standing over us and like, well, he's missing class and but like, you know, like just accusing, and my son just sitting there with his head down, like in his hands, like he's not going to respond when you like approach him like that. I don't even want to respond when you approach me like this. I don't want to have to come up here and deal with you. So I think again, the punitive culture of just kicking people out, casting folks aside in society, all sorts of different people. But I mean, people that aren't like everybody else, and society deems as different, and we're not. We're all the same. And I think that instead of threats and intimidation and being kicked out, we need more support. I have asked the police for support. They actually showed up to my house after my son wasn't attending school 2 days ago for a welfare check and to get his laptop back, which I don't have because he has it. And them telling me that the school could prosecute me for not turning in his laptop. So, you know, they know the situation. I stay in contact with them. Like the police tell me when they come to my house that they can't help me, that it's a civil matter, that he went to his dad's house. Yet you're coming to my house for a welfare check and you won't go check on him at his dad's. So it's just so confusing to me, and it doesn't make any sense. Like when I really need help, you can't tell me you can't help me, but like you're criminalizing kids who need help. So the system just doesn't make sense. And, you know, I went to a Catholic grade school from kindergarten to 8th grade, private Catholic grade school. And I mean, the differences between private schools and public schools that I see now is just crazy, but that's a whole different situation, topic for another day. That's all I have to say.
I'm sorry, but
Sorry.
yeah, and I'd like to get a little bit into that topic. I want to ask Jaden, and I'm sorry about, I'm just so like fumbled up with everything that we've been doing today. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the solution would be in your situation? What do you think needs to change?
I would say, oops, sorry. I would say honestly, if I had someone that would advocate for me, or if I had someone that like I could talk to about this, like within the district or something like that, to really tell them like, hey, I'm having issues with my IEP and I don't feel respected, like it's being respected in my school. What can I do? whether that's someone that's in the district or someone outside of the district that would advocate for me, I think that would have helped me a lot. I understand that like isn't really a solution for everyone, but you know, also having like teacher involvement, I feel like even though like I was like, I guess like, well, even though I was being harassed at schools, I did have a couple teachers that would like constantly be like, hey, like what's going on? And you know, would want to check in on me. And I feel like having those teachers like there present and like with the decisions of what's going on, because a lot of these teachers were like constantly like, I understand you're putting in the work. I understand you're like trying your best. I feel like having teachers involved in like, you know, that those meetings would have been very helpful. I also think family involvement would have been very helpful as well. I pretty much had to go through these meetings alone. And because my mother, she is more of a Spanish speaker than English speaker, they did not really want to include her in these meetings. And it was very difficult because I felt like I couldn't stand up for myself. I need someone there with me as well. Because, you know, being like 13 and 14 and like going through these situations is very hard. It's very hard for you to stand up for yourself at that age and needing like, you know, you need your parents there or something like that. I feel like it was also difficult because, you know, like they didn't want to like really accommodate for her either because she was bilingual or have bilingual services for her. So I feel like a lot of these meetings were very hard, and they introduced it to me as like a choice, quote unquote, of if I could leave the school or not. But instead, like I was in the hospital, and what ended up happening was, I was in the hospital, and they just told my mom, nope. Instead of, you know, the agreement that it was supposed to be my choice if I leave the school or not.
It's I honestly, it's like, it's ridiculous that they do these things, that they have you in a room as a minor, you know, sitting across from administration and all of that. I imagine it's incredibly intimidating. And I mean, that needs to change. And I 100% can see where you're coming from. I wanted to also ask the same question, Audie. What do you think the solution is in your situation?
I feel like having my teachers check up on me. Like I said, only one really did. The rest kind of just didn't talk to me at all whatsoever. And then also just being offered the extra help and having them also accept an IEP. Because Peoria Flex Academy, they do make accommodations for students, but the students in question that they make accommodations for is like troubled students. So they're still very strict on it, and the accommodations are pretty much just like being treated like a human being at school. And so when they just told my mom, no, we're not making an IEP, we're not going to accept it, that was really, really difficult because it just felt like maybe that would be a solution or a tiny little thing that would help through all of this and make it less harder for me. And then I also wish that I just had someone to talk to overall in general, that kind of like knows more about the topic, because obviously like suicide in general is a very heavy topic, and not everyone has experienced that type of loss, and I hope not everyone experiences that type of loss, because it's really messed up, and extremely lonely. And because of how lonely it is, and also I was already struggling mentally beforehand really badly, it made me feel even worse. And knowing that I had nobody to talk to and nobody would talk to me was even harder for me. And the ones that did talk to me, they were just walking on eggshells and refused to acknowledge the elephant in the room. And it made me feel bad about myself because I felt as if, okay, they want me and expect me to be doing okay. So why can't I just like suck it up? So I really wish that they at least had somebody there that can talk to students about those type of topics, not even if it's just like suicide in general, but just grief in general, and then also have them make those accommodations either with or without an IEP, and then also accept an IEP, instead of just throwing it back in our face and saying, no, we're not going to do this. And yeah, I think that's it.
I mean, I totally understand. I mean, first of all, accepting an IFP and just actually holding themselves to their word is absolutely crucial. And one thing that I think that we fight for every day, and I think it's one of the most important things that we could ever fight for, is the necessary training to know how to talk about these subjects that I think everybody in school needs, and everybody, all the staff, all the teachers need. And unless I really want to talk about everything, if I've heard one thing in everything that I do and everything that Dawn do, I think it would be that it's important to have a space, and it's important to have a friend in that space. And I recognize where you're coming from. I see that. I think that's, at the end of the day, one of the most important things you could have.